There's a doctor in Chicago making $380,000 a year who cannot write a $5,000 check without selling something first. That's not a hypothetical. That's the reality hiding behind a leased BMW, a $4,200 mortgage, private school tuition, and restaurant tabs 4 nights a week. On paper, she's wealthy. In practice, she's one emergency away from financial panic. And here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. She is not the exception. According to a 2025 Goldman Sachs report, 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 live paycheck to paycheck. 40% of those earning over $500,000 report the exact same thing. These are people making more in a single month than most Americans earn in a full year, and they feel financially anxious every single day. So if income is supposed to solve financial stress, why isn't it working? And more importantly, could this already be happening to you, just at a smaller scale? Because this trap doesn't only catch doctors and lawyers, it catches anyone whose spending quietly expands to match whatever they earn. And most people never see it coming because the whole thing feels completely reasonable while it's happening. Here's how it actually works.
The assumption almost everyone carries is that more income means more security. Hit 6 figures and the stress disappears. Cross $200,000 and you're comfortable. Reach $500,000 and money becomes irrelevant. The data says something completely different. Research shows that Americans earning $100,000 annually are actually more likely to report living paycheck to paycheck than those earning $50,000. Read that slowly. Higher income correlating with higher financial strain isn't a glitch. It's the trap doing exactly what it does. A 2025 study found that 48% of those earning $100,000 or more feel they're living paycheck to paycheck. Among those earning over $200,000, 36% say the same. Bank of America's analysis found that roughly 20% of households earning over $150,000 spend more than 95% of their income on necessities every single month. These aren't people who can't do math. Most of them understand compound interest. They know they should save more. The trap isn't arithmetic, it's psychology.
When income goes up, spending follows, almost automatically. Researchers call it lifestyle inflation, and it moves slowly enough that most people never notice it happening. A $15 lunch becomes a $25 lunch. The Honda becomes a BMW. The apartment becomes a house with a guest room nobody uses. Each upgrade feels earned. Each one technically fits the budget, but they stack on top of each other while savings stay flat. And once something becomes routine, reversing it doesn't feel like returning to normal. It feels like punishment. That's the first gear of the trap. The second gear is what keeps people stuck in it. The classic research from The Millionaire Next Door found something that consistently surprises people when they first hear it. Most actual millionaires don't look like millionaires. They live in average neighborhoods. They drive older cars. They don't broadcast their wealth because most of them aren't spending it on things that can be seen. A 2025 Empower study found that over 62% of everyday millionaires still budget, still shop deals, and still avoid extravagant lifestyles even after crossing the $1 million mark.
So there's this fascinating paradox sitting right in front of us. The people who actually accumulate wealth behave nothing like the people who appear wealthy. The doctor leasing the BMW looks richer than the plumber driving a 10-year-old truck. The plumber has $2 million in investments. The authors of that research created 2 categories worth knowing: PAWs, prodigious accumulators of wealth, and UAWs, under-accumulators of wealth. A janitor earning $50,000 a year can be more of a PAW than a physician earning $700,000. The spending habits determine the category, not the income. They also created a simple formula. Multiply your age by your pre-tax annual income, then divide by 10. That's roughly what your net worth should be. A 50-year-old earning $250,000 should have approximately $1.25 million. Most high earners fail this test dramatically, not because they didn't make enough money, because they spent it as fast as it came in. And if you want to make sure you're not in the same trap, stick around, because this next part is where it gets specific. The fixed cost problem is particularly dangerous for people moving into higher income brackets. When you earn $50,000, lenders constrain how much house you can buy. When you earn $300,000, you qualify for mortgages that stretch your budget just as thin. The numbers are just much bigger. A family earning $80,000 might spend $2,000 monthly on housing. A family earning $300,000 might spend $8,000. Same percentage of income going to shelter. Same feeling of being squeezed. The higher income family just has more expensive problems and the same fundamental lack of flexibility. Private school tuition, multiple car payments, vacation home carrying costs, country club memberships. These aren't reckless expenses in the traditional sense. They're lifestyle commitments that function like fixed costs once they're established. Pulling a child from private school feels impossible. Selling the vacation home feels like failure. Downgrading the car feels like a public announcement that something went wrong. The trap tightens precisely because the lifestyle becomes so difficult to reverse.
High-income households earning over $100,000 carried an average credit card balance of $12,760 in 2025. The top 20% of earners hold 35% of total U.S. credit card debt, despite being a smaller share of the population. Lower-income households use credit to survive, financing necessities because cash runs out before the month ends. Higher-income households use credit to maintain, financing a lifestyle that fits their income but leaves zero margin. Both groups end up in the same place, owing money with interest compounding against them. Total U.S. credit card debt hit $1.277 trillion in late 2025. That's the highest balance since tracking began in 1999, up 66% since pandemic lows. 61% of Americans with credit card debt have been in debt for at least a year, up from 53% the year before. Debt isn't temporary anymore. For millions of people, it's a permanent condition. The U.S. personal savings rate sat at 3.6% in December 2025. Americans are saving about $36 out of every $1,000 in disposable income. During the pandemic peak in April 2020, that rate hit 33.8%. Spending disappeared, stimulus arrived, people accidentally discovered what real saving felt like, and then they stopped the moment spending became possible again.
This holds across income levels. Someone earning $75,000 who saves 4% accumulates $3,000 a year. Someone earning $300,000 who saves 4% accumulates $12,000. The higher earner saves 4 times as much in raw dollars, but relative to their income, their lifestyle costs, and the wealth they could be building, they're equally vulnerable the moment something goes wrong. Compare that to actual wealth accumulators. Research from the Millionaire Next Door found that millionaires typically invest at least 15% of their income before paying for anything else. They pay themselves first. They treat savings as non-negotiable rather than aspirational. After 30 years, the gap between 4% and 15% isn't a gap anymore. It's a completely different financial life. Social media poured gasoline on all of this. A 2025 Goldman Sachs report explicitly cited keeping up with the Joneses as a measurable driver of paycheck-to-paycheck living among high earners. The comparison isn't just against neighbors anymore. It's against everyone in a feed filtered to show only the highest moments: vacations, renovations, cars, watches, from people who might be even more leveraged than the person watching. Six-figure workers feel financially inadequate because they're measuring themselves against a curated feed of highlights that don't show the debt behind them.
Discretionary spending data shows where the money disappears. Food delivery spending hit $179 monthly on average. That's $2,148 a year, just for the convenience of not cooking. Streaming services up 12.5%. Ride shares up 7.9%. Each individual line item seems minor, but they compound into thousands of dollars per year that vanish without producing anything lasting. The high-income version of this is the same psychology at larger numbers. First class instead of economy, 4-star hotels instead of reasonable alternatives, restaurants every night because cooking feels beneath the income level. Each upgrade is small in isolation. Together, they build a lifestyle that requires the full income to sustain. Now here's the thing that actually matters, and this is the shift most people never make. The escape isn't about deprivation. It's about intention.
Most people caught in the high-income poverty trap never consciously chose their spending patterns. They accumulated expenses gradually, each decision reasonable in the moment, until the entire income was committed before they had a chance to think. Reversing that pattern requires a single uncomfortable question. What is all of this spending actually for? The doctor making $380,000 could save $100,000 a year if she chose to. She earns enough. She just spends enough to prevent it. And most of those spending decisions weren't deliberate. They were automatic.
The automation principle cuts through all of it. Saving what's left after spending doesn't work. It never has. Spending what's left after saving does. Someone earning $400,000 who automatically moves $120,000 into investments will accumulate significant wealth regardless of how they spend the remaining $280,000. They'll still live well, just less extravagantly than someone earning the same amount and saving nothing. The math is straightforward. Earn $300,000, save 30%. Invest consistently at 7% average returns over 20 years. You're looking at roughly $4 million. Earn the same $300,000, save 5%. Same timeline. You end up with about $650,000. The difference between those two choices is $3.35 million. That's the actual cost of the trap over 2 decades. 77% of Americans don't feel financially comfortable, regardless of what they earn. The evidence points in one direction. Income alone has never solved financial problems, and more income alone never will. Only intentional choices about what portion you keep rather than spend create the security that most people assume a high salary automatically provides. The trap is real. The exit is available. But it starts with admitting that waiting for a higher income was never the answer. What you do with the income you already have always was.
If this one made you think, consider subscribing. This channel breaks down the financial patterns most people are living through, but nobody's explaining clearly.